The rain hammered against the bulletproof windows of the Belmont estate, like 1,000 angry fists demanding entry. It was 3:47 a.m. when Vincent Belmont's eyes snapped open in the darkness of his master bedroom. Something was wrong. After 32 years running the most feared criminal organization on the East Coast, Vincent had developed an instinct for danger that had kept him alive when dozens of his competitors had ended up in unmarked graves. His hand moved smoothly beneath his pillow, fingers wrapping around the cold steel of his Glock 19. The weight felt reassuring, familiar, like an old friend who'd never let him down. He sat up slowly, his eyes adjusting to the dim light filtering through the heavy curtains. The mansion was a fortress, 26 rooms spread across 15,000 square feet of marble floors, imported Italian furniture, and security systems that would make a Pentagon official jealous. 8 armed guards patrolled the grounds 24/7. Motion sensors covered every entrance. Cameras monitored every corner. Yet something had woken him. Vincent swung his legs out of bed, his bare feet touching the cool hardwood floor. At 53, he still maintained the physique of a man 20 years younger. A necessity in his line of work where showing weakness could get you killed before breakfast. His gray hair was cropped short military style, and his sharp blue eyes had witnessed things that would break most men. He moved through the bedroom doorway into the hallway, the gun held low, but ready. The house was silent except for the storm outside and the distant hum of the heating system. He'd sent his wife, Caroline, to their vacation home in the Hamptons 3 days ago. She asked fewer questions there, surrounded by book clubs and garden parties instead of the reality of what paid for her designer dresses. Vincent descended the grand staircase, his trained ears picking up something beneath the storm's symphony. There, a soft scraping sound like fabric brushing against wood. It came from below, from the direction of the wine cellar. His jaw tightened. The wine cellar wasn't just storage for his extensive collection of rare vintages. Behind a false wall lay something far more valuable: documents, cash reserves, and evidence that could bring down half the city's political elite if it ever saw daylight. If someone had breached his security and found that room. He moved faster now, his finger resting on the trigger guard. The door to the cellar stood slightly ajar, definitely not how he'd left it. Vincent's mind raced through possibilities. A rival family making a move? The FBI finally getting bold? A former associate turned rat trying to steal leverage? The wooden steps creaked under his weight as he descended into the cellar. The air grew cooler, thick with the scent of aged oak barrels and expensive wine. Security lights cast long shadows between the rows of bottles, creating a maze of darkness and dim illumination. "I know you're down here," Vincent called out, his voice steady and cold. "You've got exactly 10 seconds to show yourself before I start shooting through the wine racks. Some of these bottles cost more than your life, but I'll sacrifice them to make a point." Silence. Then, barely audible, breathing. Quick, shallow breaths from someone trying hard not to make noise. Vincent moved toward the sound, rounding the corner of a tall shelf stacked with French Bordeaux. His gun came up, aimed at chest height for an adult intruder. What he found made him freeze. Crouched behind a stack of wooden crates, pressed as far back into the shadows as humanly possible, was a kid. A black boy who couldn't have been more than 12 or 13 years old, skinny as a rail, wearing a torn hoodie and jeans that were 2 sizes too big. His sneakers were falling apart, held together with duct tape. But it was his eyes that stopped Vincent cold. Not the terror he expected to see, but something else. Something burning and fierce that didn't belong in a child's face. "Jesus Christ," Vincent muttered, lowering his weapon slightly but not dropping it. "How the hell did you get in here?" The kid didn't answer immediately. He stayed frozen, but his eyes never left Vincent's face. Those eyes studied him with an intensity that felt wrong, unnatural for someone so young caught in such a dangerous situation. "I asked you a question, boy." Vincent's voice hardened. "You've got about 30 seconds before my security team comes down here, and they won't be as patient as I'm being." "Through the service entrance," the kid finally spoke, his voice rough like he hadn't had water in days. "The guard change at 3:30, 18-minute window before the cameras cycle back." Vincent felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cellar's temperature. This wasn't some random street kid looking for a warm place to sleep. He'd studied the security patterns, planned this. Smart, Vincent acknowledged, his respect unwilling but genuine. "That's good intelligence. Professional even. So who sent you? Which family are you working for?" He studied the boy's face, looking for recognition, for any sign this was an elaborate hit disguised as innocence. "The Castellanos? The Russians?" The kid's jaw clenched. Nobody sent me. I came on my own. Bullshit. Vincent moved closer, and now the boy did press back against the wall, his bravado cracking just slightly. Kids don't break into my house alone. You're either incredibly stupid or incredibly brave, and I haven't decided which yet. I'm not stupid, the boy said quietly. And I'm not brave, I'm just... He paused, and something flickered across his face. Pain, raw and recent. I'm just looking for answers. Answers? Vincent's finger tensed on the trigger. This felt like a setup, some kind of elaborate con. What kind of answers do you think you'll find in my wine cellar? The boy took a deep breath, and when he spoke again, his voice carried a weight that no child's voice should carry. I'm looking for the man who killed my father. Vincent felt the words hit him like a physical blow. In his line of work, he'd heard countless accusations, threats, and pleas over the years. He'd become immune to them, had learned to shut off the part of himself that felt anything when delivering orders that ruined lives. But something about the way this kid said it, the certainty, the grief, barely controlled beneath the surface, cut through his defenses. A lot of men have died in this city, kid, Vincent said, his voice carefully neutral. What makes you think I had anything to do with your father? Because I've spent 6 months finding you. The boy's hands trembled slightly, but his voice stayed steady. 6 months living in shelters, sleeping in alleys, asking questions nobody wanted to answer, following money trails and whispered names until they all led here. To you, Vincent Belmont. The use of his full name sent another chill through Vincent. This was no random encounter. Who was your father? Marcus Hayes. The name dropped into the silence like a stone into still water. They found him in an alley off Riverside Drive 8 months ago. 3 bullets. The police said it was gang violence, case closed. But my dad wasn't in a gang. He was an accountant. He worked late hours at Morrison & Associates downtown, trying to make enough money to move us out of the city. Vincent's mind raced back through 8 months of operations, but the name meant nothing to him. Hundreds of names passed through his organization's activities, targets, witnesses, collateral damage. He didn't personally know or order every hit, and he certainly didn't memorize the names of every casualty in the war he waged for territory and power. I've never heard that name, Vincent said, and he was surprised to realize he meant it honestly. Maybe you didn't pull the trigger, the boy, Marcus Hayes' son, continued, his voice growing stronger now, anger giving him courage. But you gave the order, or your men did, same thing. That's not how this works, Vincent started, then stopped himself. Why was he explaining anything to this kid? He should call his men, have the boy removed, figure out how this breach happened and make sure it never happened again. But he didn't call out, didn't move. My name is Elijah, the boy said, and somehow Vincent knew this was important. This introduction. Elijah Hayes. I'm 13 years old, and I didn't come here to beg. I didn't come here to get revenge. I know I couldn't even if I tried. I came here because I needed to look in the eyes of the man responsible and ask him one question. What question? Vincent found himself asking, knowing he was making a mistake, knowing he should end this conversation and this strange, unsettling encounter. Elijah's eyes locked onto his, and Vincent saw something there that he'd spent decades trying to forget. Humanity, pain, the kind of loss that carved pieces out of your soul. Did my father's life mean anything to you? When you made the decision that ended with him dying alone in that alley, did you think about him at all? Did you wonder if he had a family? Did you care? The question hung in the air between them, more dangerous than any weapon, because Vincent knew the answer, and it was an answer that condemned him more thoroughly than any evidence ever could. Vincent Belmont had killed his first man at 19 years old, a Russian enforcer who'd come to collect a debt from his father, a debt paid in blood on their kitchen floor. Since that night, Vincent had walked through a world painted in shades of violence and necessity, where conscience was a luxury that got you buried. He'd ordered hits, sanctioned executions, and eliminated threats without losing sleep. But standing in his wine cellar at 4 a.m, looking into the eyes of a 13-year-old boy asking if his father's life had meant anything, Vincent felt something he hadn't experienced in over 3 decades. Shame. Get up, Vincent said finally, his voice rougher than intended. He lowered his gun completely, tucking it into the waistband of his pajama pants. We're not having this conversation with you hiding in the corner like a rat. Elijah hesitated, clearly expecting a trap, then slowly rose to his feet. Standing, he was even thinner than Vincent had initially thought, all sharp angles and visible collarbones beneath the worn hoodie. When was the last time this kid had eaten a real meal? Follow me, Vincent ordered, turning toward the stairs. He heard Elijah's uncertain footsteps behind him, the boy's distrust radiating like heat. Smart kid, Vincent thought. Trust could get you killed faster than stupidity in his world. They climbed the stairs in silence, emerging into the mansion's main floor. Vincent led Elijah through the marble-floored hallway, past oil paintings worth more than most people's houses, beneath crystal chandeliers that cost 6 figures. He could feel the boy's eyes taking everything in, the obscene wealth built on broken lives and dirty money. The kitchen was Vincent's favorite room in the house, ironically. Modern and sleek with commercial-grade appliances, yet somehow still feeling almost normal. He'd spent countless nights here alone, unable to sleep, drinking expensive scotch and pretending he was just a regular man with regular problems. Sit. Vincent gestured to one of the bar stools at the granite island. Elijah remained standing, his body tense and ready to run. I said, sit, Elijah, I'm not going to hurt you. Why should I believe that? The boy's voice cracked slightly, betraying his fear beneath the brave facade. Because if I wanted you dead, you'd already be dead. Vincent opened the refrigerator, pulling out eggs, cheese, and butter. When's the last time you ate? Elijah didn't answer immediately. Vincent glanced back to see the boy's resolve wavering, his hand unconsciously moving to his stomach. Yesterday morning? Maybe the day before? I don't. The days kind of blur together. Vincent felt that unfamiliar shame twist deeper. He pulled out a pan, set it on the stove, and began cracking eggs with practiced efficiency. Cooking was another unexpected skill, something Caroline had never understood about him. The most feared crime boss in the city making his own breakfast like some suburban dad. You said your father was an accountant, Vincent said as he whisked the eggs, adding a splash of milk. Morrison and Associates, that's a legitimate firm downtown. Small operation, mostly handles small business taxes and personal finances. You know it? Elijah had moved slightly closer, drawn by the smell of butter melting in the pan. I know everything in this city that matters. Vincent poured the eggs into the pan, the sizzle filling the quiet kitchen. Marcus Hayes, born 1982 in Atlanta, moved to New York in 2008. Married Angela Hayes, a nurse at Mount Sinai. One son, Elijah, born 2012. Lived in a rent-controlled apartment in Washington Heights. No criminal record, no outstanding debts, no connections to any organization, legitimate or otherwise. Elijah's eyes widened. How do you... I had my people run his name while we were walking up here. Vincent gestured to his phone sitting on the counter, screen dark. A simple text sent before they'd left the cellar had set his intelligence network in motion. Took them 90 seconds to compile a basic file. Your father was nobody, Elijah. And I mean that with no disrespect. He was a good man living a clean life. That's rare in this city. Then why did he die? Elijah's voice broke completely now, the anger crumbling into raw grief. If he was nobody, if he wasn't involved in anything, why would your people kill him? Vincent divided the scrambled eggs onto 2 plates, added salt and pepper, then set one in front of Elijah along with a fork. Eat first, then we'll talk. I don't want... Eat. Vincent's voice carried the authority of a man accustomed to being obeyed. You're running on fumes and you won't like what I'm about to tell you. Better to hear it with food in your stomach. Elijah stared at the plate for a long moment, pride warring with hunger. Hunger won. He picked up the fork and took a bite, then another, then began eating with the desperation of someone who'd been starving. Vincent ate his own portion slowly, watching the kid devour the eggs in less than a minute. More? Vincent offered. Elijah shook his head, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. Tell me what happened to my father. Vincent set down his fork, the clink of metal on ceramic sounding too loud in the quiet kitchen. He'd spent 32 years building walls around anything resembling guilt or remorse. Those walls had kept him sane, kept him functional in a world where showing weakness meant death. But looking at this boy, this son of a man he'd condemned without knowing, those walls started to crack. 8 months ago we had a problem, Vincent began, his voice flat and factual, the way he delivered all uncomfortable truths. One of my financial operations got sloppy. A legitimate accounting firm was being used to launder money through small business accounts, a clean operation that had worked for years. But someone inside got greedy, started skimming off the top. My people needed to send a message. Elijah's hands gripped the edge of the counter, his knuckles going white. What kind of message? The permanent kind, Vincent said. I gave the order to eliminate the accountant who was stealing from me. His name was Richard Morrison, the Morrison in Morrison and Associates. The silence that followed felt like a physical presence in the room, heavy and suffocating. But they got the wrong man, Elijah whispered, understanding dawning with horrifying clarity in his eyes. Vincent nodded slowly. My men were given a name and a location. Morrison and Associates after hours. They were told the target would be working late alone in the office. What they didn't know, what I didn't verify, was that Richard Morrison had left early that night. Your father was covering his shift, working late to finish quarterly reports for a client. So they just shot him, without even checking who he was? It was dark. He was in Morrison's office at Morrison's desk wearing a suit. From outside the window, Vincent's voice trailed off. No excuse would make this right. No explanation would bring Marcus Hayes back to life. They shot him through the window, Elijah said, and it wasn't a question. He'd probably spent months piecing together the details, imagining how his father died. 3 bullets. The police report said 2 to the chest, 1 to the head. Professional hit, they called it. Case closed because nobody cared enough about one more dead black man in this city. The accusation in those last words hit harder than any physical blow. Because Elijah was right, the investigation had been cursory at best. No witnesses, no evidence, no motive. Just another victim of random violence in a city that had seen thousands. The real target, Richard Morrison, disappeared the next day. Vincent continued, needing Elijah to hear the full truth. Took what he'd stolen and ran. We found him 3 weeks later in Miami. He's dead now too. Is that supposed to make me feel better? Elijah's voice rose, anger blazing back to life. That you killed the right man eventually? My father died because your people were incompetent. Because you gave an order without caring about collateral damage. You're right. The admission came easier than Vincent expected. I gave the order. I didn't verify the target. I didn't think about consequences or casualties. Your father died because I was careless with other people's lives. Elijah stood abruptly, the bar stool scraping against the floor. So what now? You've confessed. Are you going to kill me too? Make sure nobody knows the truth? Vincent studied the boy's face. The defiance mixed with terror, the intelligence burning behind eyes that had seen too much suffering too young. A smarter man, a more ruthless man, would eliminate this witness. One phone call and Elijah Hayes would vanish like his father had, another statistic in a city full of tragedy. But Vincent found himself saying words he never expected to speak. No, I'm not going to kill you. Then what? Vincent stood, walking to the window that overlooked his estate's grounds. Dawn was beginning to break, pale gray light pushing back the darkness. I'm going to tell you something that nobody in my organization knows. Something that could get me killed if the wrong people found out. He turned back to face Elijah. 30 years ago, when I was building my empire, I made a choice. I decided that conscience was weakness, that caring about the people I hurt would destroy me before my enemies could. So I buried that part of myself, locked it away so deep I almost forgot it existed. Why are you telling me this? Elijah asked warily. Because you asked me a question down in that cellar. You asked if your father's life meant anything to me. Vincent's voice dropped lower. The truth is, I didn't know his name until tonight. Didn't think about him at all when I gave the order. And that makes me exactly what you think I am. A monster who treats human lives like they're nothing. You're telling me what I already know. I'm telling you that you're right to hate me, Vincent said. But I'm also telling you that for the first time in 3 decades, I feel something about the people I've hurt. Because you forced me to put a face to the name, a son to the victim. You made your father real to me. Elijah's eyes narrowed. And you think that matters? You think feeling bad about murdering my dad makes any difference? No. Vincent shook his head. Nothing I do will bring him back. No amount of money or power can undo what I've done. But I can give you something. I don't want anything from you. Information. Vincent continued as if Elijah hadn't spoken. You want to know everything about how your father died. The names, the details, the truth that the police never bothered to find. I can give you that. And I can give you something else. What? Vincent walked back to face Elijah directly, close enough to see the boy trembling despite his brave stance. I can teach you how to survive in a world that took your father from you. Because right now you're smart but reckless. Brave but unprepared. You broke into my house, that takes guts. But you had no exit plan, no backup, no protection if things went wrong. I don't need your help. Yes, you do, Vincent said bluntly. Where's your mother, Elijah? The boy's face crumbled for just a second before he forced it back into a mask. She died 6 years ago. Cancer. My dad was all I had left. The revelation about Elijah's mother hung in the air like smoke after gunfire. Vincent had expected the boy to have someone, an aunt, grandparents, someone waiting for him to come home. The reality was far worse. This 13-year-old had been completely alone for 8 months, surviving on the streets while hunting for his father's killer. "Where have you been staying?" Vincent asked, his voice softer than before. Elijah's jaw tightened. "Why do you care? Just answer the question." "Different places," Elijah said defensively. "Shelters when I can get a bed, the subway when I can't. Sometimes I sleep in the library during the day when security isn't watching." He lifted his chin, daring Vincent to judge him. "I've been doing fine." "Fine?" Vincent gestured to the boy's emaciated frame, the dark circles under his eyes, the clothes that hung off him like rags. "You look like you haven't slept in a real bed or eaten a proper meal in months. That's not fine, Elijah. That's survival mode, and survival mode has an expiration date." "Better than foster care," Elijah shot back. "I aged out of most people's sympathy the day I turned 13. Black boy, no family attitude problem. I know exactly how that story ends. Group homes, bad placements, aging out of the system at 18 with nothing. At least on the streets, I'm free." Vincent recognized that particular brand of cynicism, the kind that came from understanding society's harsh truths too young. He'd been barely older than Elijah when he learned that the world was divided into predators and prey, and the only choice that mattered was which one you'd become. "You can't go back to the streets," Vincent said, making a decision that would have seemed insane to him just hours ago. "Not after breaking into my house. Word will get out. It always does. And when it does, every punk kid in the city will think they can try the same thing. I can't have that." Elijah's eyes widened with genuine fear for the first time since Vincent had found him. "So you are going to kill me?" "No," Vincent said firmly. "I'm going to keep you here." "What?" The word came out as barely a whisper. Vincent moved to the coffee maker, buying himself time to think through what he was about to propose. The machine hissed and gurgled as it brewed, filling the kitchen with the rich aroma of dark roast. His mind was working through angles, calculating risks and benefits, with the same cold precision he applied to business decisions. Except this wasn't entirely cold. Something about Elijah had gotten under his skin. The boy's courage, his intelligence, the way he'd looked Vincent in the eye and demanded accountability. It reminded Vincent of someone he used to be, before the violence and paranoia had calcified around his soul like armor. "Let me explain something to you about my world," Vincent began, pouring 2 cups of coffee and sliding one toward Elijah. The boy looked at it suspiciously, but didn't touch it. "In my organization, reputation is everything. If people think you're weak, you're dead. If they think you're careless, you're dead. If they think you can be manipulated through guilt or sentiment, you're definitely dead. I don't see what that has to do with me." "Everything," Vincent said. "Right now you're a problem. A 13-year-old kid who broke into my house, who knows about a botched hit that made me look incompetent, who has every reason to want revenge. Most people in my position would handle that problem permanently." Elijah's hand moved unconsciously toward the kitchen knife block on the counter, and Vincent almost smiled at the instinct. The kid had survival written into his DNA. "But," Vincent continued, "there's another way to look at this situation. You're smart enough to infiltrate my security, to track down information that took real detective work. You're motivated. You spent 8 months pursuing the truth when most people would have given up or gotten themselves killed. And most importantly, you're alone. No family, no ties, no one who would come looking if you disappeared. That's supposed to be a selling point?" Elijah's voice dripped with sarcasm. "In my world, yes." Vincent took a sip of his coffee. "I'm offering you a deal, Elijah. You stay here in this house. I'll provide food, shelter, education, everything you need. In exchange, you work for me." "Work for you?" Elijah's face twisted with disgust. "You want me to become a criminal? Work for the man who killed my father?" "I want you to survive," Vincent corrected. "And more than that, I want you to learn. Learn how this city really works, how power operates, how to read people and situations. Skills that will serve you no matter what path you choose later." "Why?" Elijah demanded. "Why would you do this? Guilt? Some twisted sense of responsibility?" Vincent considered lying, giving the boy a comfortable answer that would make this easier to swallow. But Elijah had earned honesty, even if it was uncomfortable. "Partially guilt, yes," Vincent admitted. "Your father's death was my fault. Not directly, but the chain of command leads back to me. I can't undo that. But maybe I can do something that matters." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "But it's also strategic. A young black kid living in my house, going to good schools, being groomed for, let's call it a legitimate future. That's good PR in a city that's watching how I operate. So I'm a prop, Elijah said bitterly. A way to make yourself look better. You're an opportunity, Vincent countered. For both of us. You get off the streets, get an education, get resources that would take you decades to acquire on your own, I get. Redemption isn't the right word, but maybe a chance to prove I'm not completely beyond saving. Elijah stared at him for a long moment, his young face struggling with emotions too complex for his age. And if I say no, then I'll give you $10,000 cash, a burner phone with emergency contacts, and a car to the city limits, Vincent said. I'll let you walk away, and I'll make sure nobody from my organization ever touches you. But you'll be on your own, Elijah. 13 years old with a target on your back from every street crew that finds out you embarrassed Vincent Belmont. Some choice. It's more choice than most people get in my world, Vincent said quietly. I'm not your friend, Elijah. I'm not trying to replace your father. I'm offering you a transaction, my resources and protection in exchange for your cooperation and discretion. It's a business arrangement. Business, Elijah repeated, and something shifted in his expression, a hardness creeping in around his eyes. Fine, let's talk business then. What exactly would I have to do? Vincent felt a twinge of something, regret, concern, at how quickly the boy had adapted to this conversation, but he pushed it aside. Adaptability was a survival trait, and Elijah would need plenty of that. For now, go to school, a private academy where I have connections, Ashford Preparatory in Manhattan, good education, better networking. You'll live here in the East Wing. I'll hire tutors to catch you up on whatever you've missed. You'll have clothes, food, everything you need. And in exchange, you keep your mouth shut about how you got here, Vincent said. The story we tell is that you're the son of an old friend who died and I'm your guardian now. To the outside world, I'm a legitimate businessman taking care of family. To my organization, you're a protected asset. Hands off. No questions asked. What about the truth? Elijah asked. What about justice for my father? Vincent's expression darkened. Justice? There's no such thing as justice in this city, Elijah. There's only power and consequences. Your father got caught in the crossfire of a world he never even knew existed. That's tragic, and it's wrong, but it's done. The men who pulled the trigger are dead. I made sure of that once I found out about the mistake. The man who was supposed to die is dead. Everyone involved in that cluster has paid their price. Except you, Elijah said quietly. You gave the order and you're still here, still running your empire. Except me, Vincent acknowledged. But here's something else to consider. I'm the only thing standing between you and a very dangerous world. You came looking for revenge, for answers. You found both. Now you have a choice about what comes next. Elijah was quiet for a long time, his fingers drumming against the granite countertop in a nervous rhythm. Vincent could practically see the calculations running behind those intelligent eyes, weighing options, considering angles, trying to find the trap in this offer. I want conditions, Elijah finally said. Of course you do, Vincent almost smiled. Name them. First, I want to know everything, every detail about what happened to my father. Names, dates, locations, everything you have in your files. Agreed, Vincent said. But that information stays between us. You don't go looking for revenge, you don't try to take matters into your own hands, that's non-negotiable. Fine, Elijah continued. Second, I want to finish high school and go to college. A real college, not some bought degree. And when I'm 18, I'm free to walk away from whatever this is, no strings attached. Done, Vincent said. Though I think you'll find that walking away from certain types of knowledge is harder than you expect. But yes, 18, you're free to choose your own path. Third, Elijah's voice grew harder. You never ask me to hurt anyone. I'm not becoming what you are. I'm not putting blood on my hands. Vincent studied the boy's face, seeing the line Elijah was drawing in the sand. It was a good line, a necessary one. I agree to that. You won't be involved in the business side of my operations. Your job is to be a student. Nothing more. Then I guess we have a deal, Elijah said, but his voice held no triumph, only exhaustion and resignation. Vincent extended his hand across the counter. We have a deal. Elijah looked at the offered hand for a long moment, and Vincent could see the war playing out behind his eyes, the need for survival battling against everything the boy believed about right and wrong. Finally, with visible reluctance, Elijah reached out and shook Vincent's hand. The moment their palms met, Vincent felt it. A sense of crossing a threshold from which there was no return. This wasn't just about redemption or strategy anymore. He'd just taken responsibility for a child, for a future, for something beyond himself. The weight of it was unexpectedly heavy. "All right." Vincent released Elijah's hand and checked his watch. 5:43 a.m. "Here's what happens now. I'm going to show you to your room. You're going to sleep, really sleep, in a real bed, for as long as you need. When you wake up, we'll get you proper clothes and start figuring out your enrollment at Ashford. Questions?" "Just one," Elijah said. "Why do you keep looking at me like that?" "Like what?" "Like you're trying to figure out if you made a mistake." Vincent considered lying again but settled for a partial truth. "Because I probably did. Taking in the son of a man I got killed, offering him a place in my home. It's the kind of sentimental decision that usually ends badly in my line of work. Then why do it?" Vincent picked up both coffee cups and walked them to the sink. "Because maybe I'm tired of every decision ending badly. Maybe I'm tired of being the villain in every story." He turned back to face Elijah. "Or maybe I just want to see if it's possible for something good to come from something terrible." To be continued. Cliffhanger. Vincent and Elijah have struck an uneasy bargain. Protection and opportunity in exchange for discretion and cooperation. But in a world built on violence and betrayal, can this fragile arrangement survive? And more importantly, what will happen when Vincent's organization discovers the truth about the boy living under their boss's roof? 3 weeks had passed since that night in the wine cellar, and Vincent Belmont's mansion had become an entirely different place. The sound of a teenager's footsteps echoed through halls that had known only adult conspiracies for decades. The kitchen smelled of burnt toast and experimenting with breakfast recipes. The home theater, previously used only for reviewing security footage, now occasionally played movies that Vincent had never heard of. Elijah Hayes was adjusting, though not without friction. Vincent stood in his study watching through the window as Elijah shot basketball in the converted court behind the mansion. The boy had gained weight, his face filling out with regular meals. New clothes replaced the rags, designer jeans and hoodies that probably cost more than his father had made in a month. But the anger was still there, simmering beneath every polite thank you and forced smile. "He's doing well in the placement tests," said Marcus Chen, Vincent's head of security and oldest friend, standing beside him with a tablet showing Elijah's academic assessments. "Ashford says he's testing at grade level in most subjects, above in mathematics. Surprisingly well adjusted considering his circumstances." "He's not adjusted at all," Vincent corrected. "He's performing. There's a difference." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You're getting philosophical in your old age, Vincent." "I'm getting realistic." Vincent turned from the window. "The kid is smart enough to know that cooperation gets him what he needs. But he hasn't forgiven me. Won't ever forgive me, and I don't blame him." "Then why keep him here?" Marcus asked the question he'd been dancing around for weeks. "This isn't like you. You don't do charity cases. You don't bring liabilities into your home." "Maybe I'm changing," Vincent said, though he didn't quite believe it himself. "Or maybe you're getting sentimental, which in our business is the same as signing your death warrant." Marcus's voice dropped lower. "The Calabrese family is asking questions. So are the Russians. Word is out that you've taken in some kid, and people want to know why. They're wondering if he's leverage, if he's being groomed for something, if I've gone soft," Vincent finished. "Let them wonder. It keeps them off balance. It also makes you look unpredictable," Marcus warned. "And unpredictable makes people nervous. Nervous people make rash decisions." Before Vincent could respond, his phone buzzed. A text from his lieutenant, Frank Giordano. "We have a problem. Warehouse district. Now." Vincent's jaw tightened. In his world, problem was code for something that required his personal attention, something violent, complicated, or both. "Handle it," Marcus said, reading Vincent's expression. "I'll stay here with the kid." "No." Vincent made a split-second decision that surprised even himself. "Bring him with us." Marcus stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "You want to bring a 13-year-old to a business meeting?" "Vincent, what the hell? He wants to understand this world?" Vincent was already moving toward the door. Time to show him what it really looks like. Get him in the car. Now. 10 minutes later, they were in Vincent's armored Mercedes, rolling through the city streets toward the warehouse district. Elijah sat in the back seat, his earlier enthusiasm about leaving the mansion quickly fading, as he took in the grim expressions of the adults around him. "Where are we going?" Elijah asked, his voice careful. "To handle business," Vincent said from the front passenger seat. "You wanted to know everything about my world, Elijah. Consider this your education. I thought we agreed I wouldn't be involved in—" "You won't be involved," Vincent cut him off. "You'll observe. There's a difference. Keep your mouth shut, stay close to Marcus, and don't do anything stupid, understand? Elijah nodded, but Vincent could see the fear creeping into the boy's eyes. Good, he thought. Fear keeps you alive. The warehouse district was a collection of abandoned industrial buildings on the waterfront, the kind of place where things happened that never made it into police reports. Vincent's Mercedes pulled up alongside 3 other black SUVs, their occupants standing in a loose perimeter around a loading dock. Frank Giordano approached as Vincent stepped out of the car, his expression tight with tension. Frank was a 20-year veteran of the organization, reliable, brutal when necessary, and smart enough to recognize problems before they became disasters. "Boss," Frank nodded to Vincent, then his eyes flicked to Elijah emerging from the car with Marcus. We've got a situation that's maybe not appropriate for..." "He's observing," Vincent said flatly. "Brief me." Frank led them toward the warehouse entrance, lowering his voice. "We got a rat. One of our distribution guys, Tommy Ricci, has been feeding information to the feds. We intercepted messages, confirmed the contact. He's been at it for at least 3 months." Vincent's expression didn't change, but Elijah saw something flicker in his eyes. Cold calculation mixed with disappointment. "Where is he?" "Inside, tied up, waiting for your call on how to proceed." They entered the warehouse and Elijah's stomach immediately knotted. The space was vast and mostly empty, illuminated by harsh industrial lights hanging from the ceiling. In the center, a man sat tied to a metal chair, mid-30s, dark hair, blood trickling from a split lip where someone had already worked him over. Tommy Ricci looked up as Vincent approached, and Elijah saw pure terror in the man's eyes. "Boss, please," Tommy started immediately, words tumbling out in a panicked rush. "I can explain, I swear to God I can explain." "Shut up." Vincent's voice was arctic. He circled the chair slowly, hands clasped behind his back like a professor examining a disappointing student. 3 months, Tommy. 3 months you've been selling us out to the FBI. Our routes, our suppliers, our protection arrangements. Do you have any idea how much damage you've caused?" "They had me." Tommy's voice cracked. "They busted me on possession, said they'd send me away for 15 years if I didn't cooperate. What was I supposed to do?" "You were supposed to come to me," Vincent said quietly. "You were supposed to tell me you were compromised so we could handle it. Instead, you betrayed 2 decades of loyalty for what? A reduced sentence? Witness protection?" Elijah stood frozen beside Marcus, his heart hammering in his chest. He'd known intellectually what Vincent did, had understood in abstract terms that people died in this world. But seeing it, watching a man beg for his life while Vincent circled like a shark, made it horrifyingly real. "Please," Tommy was crying now. "I've got kids, boss, 2 little girls, they need their father." Vincent stopped circling, standing directly in front of Tommy. "You should have thought about your daughters before you put a wire on and started recording conversations. You should have thought about them before you endangered everyone in this organization." He turned to Frank. "What's the exposure?" "Bad," Frank admitted. "The feds have enough to move on 3 of our distribution points. We've already shut them down and moved operations, but we're looking at significant losses, plus whatever else Tommy gave them that we don't know about yet." Vincent was quiet for a long moment, and Elijah could feel the tension in the room ratcheting up to an almost unbearable level. Every man there knew what came next, what always came next, when someone betrayed the organization. "Vincent," Marcus said quietly, meaningfully, and Elijah realized his presence was being noted, a reminder that there was a child watching this unfold. Vincent seemed to consider something, his jaw working silently. Then he reached into his jacket, and Elijah's breath caught as he saw the gun. "No," Elijah heard himself say, the word escaping before he could stop it. "Don't." Every head in the warehouse turned toward him. Marcus's hand clamped on Elijah's shoulder in warning, but it was too late. Vincent's cold blue eyes fixed on the boy. "Something to say, Elijah?" Elijah's mouth went dry, but he forced himself to speak. "You said I wouldn't have to see anyone get hurt. You promised..." "I promised you wouldn't have to hurt anyone," Vincent corrected. "I never said you wouldn't see the reality of what I do." He gestured to Tommy. "This is the reality. This is what happens when people betray trust in my world. I thought you wanted to understand." "I do, but..." Elijah struggled for words. "His kids. You said he has daughters. He should have thought about that sooner, just like you should have thought about me before you ordered the hit that killed my father." The words came out before Elijah could stop them, sharp and accusing in the warehouse's stillness. The silence that followed was absolute. Frank and the other men looked shocked. This was clearly information they hadn't known. Marcus's grip on Elijah's shoulder tightened to the point of pain. And Vincent. Vincent's expression was unreadable. "Everyone out," Vincent said quietly. "Except Marcus and the boy." "Boss," Frank started. "Out. Now. Take Ricci to the holding facility. I'll deal with him later." The men moved quickly, untying Tommy and dragging him toward a side exit. Tommy shot Elijah a look of desperate gratitude mixed with confusion as he was hauled away. Within seconds, the warehouse was empty except for Vincent, Marcus, and Elijah. Vincent holstered his gun and turned to face Elijah fully. "That was incredibly stupid. You just revealed sensitive information in front of my men and undermined my authority in a situation where authority is everything." "I'm sorry," Elijah said, though his voice carried more defiance than apology. "But you were going to kill him." "Maybe," Vincent admitted. "Or maybe I was going to scare him, use him as a double agent, or leverage him for information. You don't know because you jumped to conclusions and opened your mouth. So you weren't going to kill him?" "I hadn't decided," Vincent said honestly. "And now it's complicated because everyone there saw a 13-year-old kid make me hesitate. Do you understand what that means? In my world, hesitation is weakness. Weakness gets exploited. And when I get exploited, people die. Not the guilty, but the innocent ones caught in the crossfire. People like your father." The comparison hit Elijah like a physical blow. "That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair." Vincent's voice rose slightly, the first real anger breaking through his controlled exterior. "You think this is a game? You think I can just let people betray me without consequences because they have families? Everyone has families, Elijah. Everyone has someone who will miss them. But I can't run an organization based on sympathy and second chances. The moment I do, I'm dead, and everyone who depends on me is dead. Then maybe you shouldn't run an organization that requires killing people," Elijah shot back. Vincent and Elijah stared at each other across the warehouse floor, and Marcus wisely stayed silent, letting this confrontation play out. "You're right," Vincent finally said, his voice dropping back to its normal, controlled tone. "Maybe I shouldn't, but I do. And now you live in my house, eat my food, and sleep under my protection. You made a deal, Elijah. You knew what I was when you shook my hand." "I know what you are," Elijah said, tears threatening now, but refusing to fall. "You're the man who killed my father, and no matter how many second chances you give people, no matter how much money you spend trying to make yourself feel better, that's never going to change." The words hung in the air, brutal and honest. Vincent absorbed them without flinching, then nodded slowly. "You're right about that too," he said. "I am that man, and you're the son of the man I killed. That's our reality, and we both have to figure out how to live with it." He moved toward the warehouse exit. "Marcus, take him home. I need to think." As Vincent walked away, Elijah felt Marcus's hand still on his shoulder, no longer restraining but almost comforting. "That took guts," Marcus said quietly. "Stupid, suicidal guts, but guts nonetheless." "Is he going to kill Tommy Ricci?" Elijah asked. "I don't know," Marcus admitted. "But you might have just saved a man's life, or you might have delayed his death long enough for him to cause more damage. Welcome to the moral ambiguity of this world, kid." To be continued. Cliffhanger. Elijah has directly challenged Vincent's authority in front of his men and forced him to confront the contradiction at the heart of their arrangement. The fragile balance between them has been shattered, and both must now decide if this relationship can survive, or if the gap between guilt and forgiveness is simply too wide to bridge. And what about Tommy Ricci, whose life now hangs in the balance? Vincent didn't come home that night, or the next. Elijah spent 2 days in the mansion feeling like a prisoner in a gilded cage, watched constantly by Marcus and the household staff who suddenly seemed less friendly and more wary. The weight of what he'd done in the warehouse pressed on him like a physical thing. He'd exposed Vincent's secret, challenged his authority, and possibly signed his own death warrant. On the third morning, Elijah woke to find Vincent sitting in the chair beside his bed. "Jesus!" Elijah bolted upright, heart hammering. "How long have you been there?" "Long enough," Vincent said. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, 2 days of stubble on his jaw, his expensive suit rumpled like he'd slept in it, or more likely, hadn't slept at all. "We need to talk." Elijah pulled the blanket up slightly, a reflexive, defensive gesture. "About what happened at the warehouse." "About everything." Vincent stood, moving to the window that overlooked the estate grounds. Morning light cast his profile in sharp relief. "I've spent the last 48 hours meeting with my lieutenants, doing damage control, and making some difficult decisions. Do you want to know what Tommy Ricci's fate is? Elijah's throat went dry. Yes, he's alive, Vincent said. Currently on a plane to Portugal with $50,000, a new identity and instructions to never set foot in the United States again. His family will join him in a month once we're sure the feds aren't tracking them. The relief that flooded through Elijah was almost dizzying. You let him go? I made a strategic decision, Vincent corrected. Killing him would have satisfied immediate justice, but your outburst made me reconsider the optics. My men saw a kid question my judgment, and I had two choices: double down and prove I'm ruthless, or show that I'm capable of mercy when circumstances warrant it. He turned to face Elijah. I chose mercy, but make no mistake, that decision cost me. Cost me respect, cost me the fear that keeps people in line, cost me the reputation I've spent decades building. I'm sorry, Elijah said, and meant it. I shouldn't have said anything. I couldn't watch you kill someone in front of me. Why not? Vincent's question was genuine, not accusatory. You came to my house knowing what I am. You shook my hand knowing I ordered your father's death. Why is watching it happen different from knowing it happens? Elijah struggled to articulate what he felt. Because knowing something and seeing it are different things. When I was on the streets trying to find you, you were just a name, a target, something abstract I could hate without complications. But now you're real. You make breakfast, you work in your study, you made sure I had a tutor for algebra because I was struggling. You're a person, not just a monster. I can be both, Vincent said quietly. Most monsters are. I know that now. Elijah pulled his knees up to his chest. But seeing Tommy Ricci tied to that chair, seeing his face, he was real too. He wasn't just a concept or a necessary evil. He was a scared man with daughters who looks like my Uncle Raymond, and I just couldn't be okay with watching him die. Vincent was quiet for a long moment, then moved to sit on the edge of Elijah's bed. The night I found you in my wine cellar, you asked me if your father's life meant anything to me when I gave the order. I told you the truth. It didn't. He was a name on paper, collateral damage, a mistake that I regretted only because it represented operational failure, not because I mourned the man himself. I remember, Elijah said bitterly. But something has changed, Vincent continued. These past 3 weeks watching you live here, seeing you slowly come back to life with regular meals and safety, it's forced me to see what I took from you. Not just your father, but your future, your normal childhood, your sense of security in the world. He met Elijah's eyes. And watching Tommy Ricci beg for his life while his betrayal hung over him like a death sentence, all I could see was your father, some accountant working late, thinking about his son at home, never knowing that his last moments would come from a mistake, a mix-up, a failure of verification. Elijah felt tears threatening but forced them back. So what does that mean? It means I'm trying to change, Vincent said. Not who I am. I'll never be a good man, Elijah. The things I've done can't be undone. But maybe I can be less of a monster going forward. Tommy Ricci is alive because of you. Because you reminded me that every person I deal with is someone's father, someone's son, someone who matters to somebody. The men at the warehouse, Elijah said. They heard what I said about my father. What happens now? Vincent's expression darkened. That's the complicated part. I've spent 2 days managing the fallout. The official story is that you're the son of Marcus Hayes, one of my father's old associates who did me a favor decades ago. Your father was killed in a random robbery, and I took you in out of loyalty to his memory. As for your outburst, I'm framing it as youthful emotion from a kid who recently lost his father, and my decision to spare Tommy as calculated strategy rather than weakness. Will they believe it? Some will, some won't. But they'll accept it because I'm still Vincent Belmont, and challenging me directly is still suicide. He stood pacing the room. However, there are going to be consequences. The Calabrese family smells blood in the water. They think I'm going soft, and they're going to test me. So are the Russians. The next few months are going to be volatile. Fear spiked through Elijah's chest. Am I in danger? You're under my protection, which means you're as safe as I can make you, Vincent said. But yes, there's increased risk. People will look at you differently now. Some will see you as my weakness, a pressure point they can use against me. Marcus will increase your security detail. You'll have bodyguards at school, at home, everywhere. I don't want bodyguards. You don't get a choice. Vincent's voice hardened. You made yourself part of this world when you broke into my house. You made yourself more part of it when you challenged me in front of my men. Now you live with the consequences. Elijah absorbed this, the full weight of his situation settling on his shoulders. What if I want to leave? What if I take your offer, the money, the phone, the ride to the city limits? Vincent studied him for a long moment. Is that what you want? I don't know what I want, Elijah admitted. A month ago, I wanted revenge. I wanted you to pay for what happened to my dad, but now, he gestured helplessly around the room. The comfortable bed, the new clothes in the closet, the textbooks for the school he'd be starting next week. Now I don't know. Part of me hates you. Part of me is grateful. And I don't know how to hold both those things at the same time. Welcome to moral complexity, Vincent said. It's uncomfortable, isn't it? Much easier when people are simply good or evil, when choices are clear-cut. Everything was simpler when I was on the streets, Elijah said. Harder, but simpler. Vincent moved to the door, then paused. I'm going to tell you something that very few people know. When I was 16, my father was killed by the Gambino family over a territorial dispute. I watched him die. 3 bullets just like your father. And I spent the next 5 years consumed by rage and the need for revenge. Elijah looked up, genuinely surprised. What did you do? I became exactly what they were, Vincent said quietly. I learned their methods, joined their world, became so good at violence and strategy that I eventually took over my father's organization and expanded it into what it is today. I got my revenge, killed every man involved in my father's death. And you know what I felt when it was done? What? Nothing. Vincent's voice was hollow, empty. Because revenge doesn't bring anyone back. It doesn't heal the wound. It just creates more wounds, more orphans, more sons looking for vengeance. I became the very thing I hated, and by the time I realized it, I was too deep to ever climb back out. He opened the door, then looked back. I'm telling you this because you have a choice I never had. You can walk away from this life. You can take the education, the resources, the opportunities I'm offering, and use them to become something better. Or you can let anger and pain define you like I did, and end up a 53-year-old man sitting in a teenager's bedroom at dawn, wondering where the hell his humanity went. After Vincent left, Elijah sat in bed for a long time, thinking about choices and consequences, about the man who killed his father and the man who was now trying to save him from a similar fate. The next week, Elijah started at Ashford Preparatory. The school was everything the streets weren't. Clean, safe, filled with kids who'd never known real hunger or fear. Marcus dropped him off in an unmarked sedan, with 2 bodyguards following at a discreet distance. Remember, Marcus said as Elijah gathered his new backpack. You're Elijah Hayes, ward of Vincent Belmont. Your father was Marcus Hayes, old family friend. You're from Queens, parents died in a car accident last year. Keep it simple, keep it consistent. I know the story, Elijah said, and if anyone asks weird questions or seems too interested, I tell you immediately, Elijah finished. I've got it, Marcus. The school day was surreal. Elijah sat through classes on literature and calculus, ate lunch in a cafeteria that served actual hot meals, and tried to act like a normal teenager when he felt anything but normal. Other students looked at him with curiosity. The new kid, the black kid in a predominantly white school, the one with the mysterious guardian. During lunch, a girl approached his table. She was petite, with auburn hair and sharp, intelligent eyes behind designer glasses. You're Elijah, right? She asked. I'm Sophie Martinez. Welcome to Ashford. Thanks, Elijah said cautiously. Sophie sat down without invitation. So Vincent Belmont, that's quite the guardian to have. You know him? Everyone knows of him, Sophie said. My father's a federal prosecutor. Vincent Belmont's name comes up a lot at dinner conversations, usually followed by my dad cursing about insufficient evidence and witnesses who suddenly develop amnesia. Elijah's stomach tightened. Your dad is a prosecutor? Relax, Sophie smiled. I'm not here to interrogate you, I'm just curious. Belmont doesn't strike me as the type to take in random orphans out of the goodness of his heart. So what's the real story? The real story is my parents are dead and he's helping me, Elijah said, keeping his voice level. That's it? Sophie studied him with those sharp eyes. Okay, but if you ever want to talk, really talk, I'm a good listener, and I don't judge. She stood up. Also, heads up, the Ashford social hierarchy is brutal. You're going to get tested, probably by someone like Brandon Cooper. She nodded toward a group of athletic-looking white kids across the cafeteria. He thinks he runs the school because his dad's a hedge fund manager. Just don't let him push you around. Before Elijah could respond, Sophie walked away, leaving him wondering if he'd just made a friend or encountered a threat. The test came faster than expected. After school, as Elijah waited for Marcus at the pickup area, Brandon Cooper and two of his friends approached. "So you're the charity case," Brandon said, his voice loud enough to draw attention from other students. "Belmont's pet project." Elijah kept his face neutral, remembering Vincent's advice about not showing weakness. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you don't." Brandon moved closer, invading personal space in a classic dominance move. "Everyone knows Belmont's a criminal, which means you're either his son from some affair or you're leverage or you're—" "Careful." One of the bodyguards materialized beside them, his hand resting visibly on something under his jacket. "The boy's under protection." Brandon paled slightly but tried to maintain his bravado. "I wasn't doing anything, just making conversation." "Then conversation's over," the bodyguard said flatly. As Brandon and his friends retreated, Elijah felt a mixture of relief and humiliation. He was safe, but he wasn't free. He was protected, but he was also owned. That night at dinner, a formal affair in the mansion's dining room, Elijah picked at his food while Vincent read through documents. "How was school?" Vincent asked without looking up. "Fine," Elijah said automatically. "You're lying." Vincent set down his papers. "What happened?" "Nothing happened. That's the problem." Elijah pushed his plate away. "I can't just be normal, can I? I'm always going to be Vincent Belmont's ward, the kid with bodyguards and a mysterious past. I'm always going to be different." "Yes," Vincent said simply. "You are. And the sooner you accept that, the easier your life will be." "That's not fair." "Nothing about your situation is fair," Vincent agreed. "But it is reality. You have choices, Elijah, but being normal isn't one of them. Not anymore." To be continued. Cliffhanger. Elijah is trying to navigate two impossible worlds: the legitimate life of a prep school student and the dark reality of living under Vincent Belmont's roof. As he struggles to find his identity between these extremes, new threats are emerging. Sophie Martinez's prosecutor father, Brandon Cooper's suspicions, and the ever-present danger from Vincent's enemies are all converging. And the fragile trust between Elijah and Vincent is about to face its greatest test yet. 4 months had passed since Elijah Hayes walked into Ashford Preparatory as Vincent Belmont's ward. 4 months of living in two worlds: the polished hallways of elite education during the day, and the shadowed reality of organized crime at night. 4 months of slowly, reluctantly, impossibly, beginning to understand the man who had destroyed his life and then tried to rebuild it. It was a Tuesday evening in February when everything came crashing down. Elijah was in the mansion's library, struggling through AP literature homework, when Marcus burst through the door with an urgency that immediately set off alarm bells. His hand was on his weapon, his face tight with the kind of controlled panic that meant something had gone catastrophically wrong. "Where's Vincent?" Marcus demanded. "His study, I think." "What's happening?" "Stay here. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone except me or Vincent." Marcus was already moving toward the hallway. "I mean it, Elijah. Anyone else tries to get in, you use the panic button under the desk and get to the safe room, understood?" "Marcus, you're scaring me." "Good. Be scared. It'll keep you sharp." Then he was gone, moving with the predatory speed of a man who'd spent decades in life or death situations. Elijah locked the door with shaking hands, then pressed his ear against it, trying to hear what was happening. Muffled voices, urgent, angry. Footsteps, multiple sets, moving fast through the mansion. Then Vincent's voice, cutting through the chaos with cold authority. "Everyone to the safe room now, full lockdown protocol." The lights in the library suddenly went out, replaced by the dim red glow of emergency lighting. Elijah's heart hammered against his ribs as he heard the mansion's security shutters beginning to descend. Thick steel barriers that would turn the estate into a fortress, or a tomb. Someone pounded on the library door. "Elijah, it's Vincent. Open up." Elijah fumbled with the lock and yanked the door open. Vincent stood there in a bulletproof vest over his dress shirt, a gun in one hand and his phone in the other. Behind him, Elijah could see members of the household staff being ushered toward the basement by armed security personnel. "Come with me." Vincent grabbed Elijah's arm, pulling him into the hallway. "We need to move fast." "What's going on? Is it the Calabrese family? The Russians?" "Worse." Vincent's jaw was set in a grim line as they moved quickly through the mansion toward his study. "It's the FBI. Someone gave them enough evidence for a raid warrant. They'll be here in less than 10 minutes and they're bringing everything. SWAT, forensic teams, probably media coverage. This is the big one, Elijah. They're trying to take down my entire organization." They entered Vincent's study, where Marcus was already at the wall safe, pulling out documents and hard drives. "We've got maybe 8 minutes before they breach the gates," Marcus said without looking up. "The files are encrypted, but if they get their hands on the hardware—" "Destroy it," Vincent ordered. "All of it. Every document, every drive, every piece of evidence in this house goes into the incinerator. Now." "Vincent." Marcus's voice carried a weight that made both of them stop. "The evidence includes your insurance files, the dirt on city officials, the federal judges, the police commissioners. You destroy that, you destroy your leverage. You'll be vulnerable." "I'm already vulnerable," Vincent said flatly. "Someone got to my inner circle. Someone talked. The only question now is damage control and making sure they can't build a case that'll stick." He turned to Elijah. "Which brings us to you." Elijah felt ice water flood his veins. "What about me?" "You're a complication," Vincent said, but not unkindly. "When the FBI gets here, they're going to find a 13-year-old black kid living in my house. They're going to ask questions: who you are, how you got here, what you know. And depending on how you answer those questions, you could either save yourself or destroy both of us." "I won't tell them anything," Elijah said immediately. "You'll tell them everything," Vincent corrected. "You'll tell them exactly what we agreed on, that you're the son of Marcus Hayes, an old family friend who died in a car accident, that I took you in out of loyalty and obligation, that you know nothing about my business operations, that you're just a kid getting an education. But that's a lie. It's the lie that keeps you out of the system and me out of prison." Vincent's voice hardened. "Listen to me very carefully, Elijah. What happens in the next few hours will determine the rest of both our lives. The FBI will try to use you against me. They'll offer you deals, protection, a fresh start away from the dangerous criminal who's holding you hostage. They'll paint me as the monster, and legally, factually, they won't be wrong." "Vincent," Marcus warned, glancing at his watch. 6 minutes. "I need to know if you understand what I'm asking," Vincent continued, ignoring Marcus. "I need to know if you can look federal agents in the eye and lie convincingly enough to protect us both." Elijah's mind raced. 4 months ago, this would have been easy. He would have thrown Vincent to the wolves without hesitation, would have celebrated watching the man who killed his father get dragged away in handcuffs. But 4 months of living under Vincent's roof, of seeing his complexity and contradictions, of watching him choose mercy for Tommy Ricci, of late-night conversations about guilt and redemption, it had complicated everything. "Why should I protect you?" Elijah asked, needing to hear Vincent say it. "Give me one good reason why I shouldn't tell them the truth. That you killed my father, that you brought me here out of guilt, that I know exactly what kind of man you are." Vincent met his eyes with an intensity that felt like looking into a furnace. "Because despite everything, despite what I am and what I've done, I've kept my promises to you. You're safe. You're fed. You're getting an education at one of the best schools in the city. And more than that, I've tried to be honest with you about the darkness in this world and in myself. I haven't lied to you, haven't pretended to be something I'm not. That's not a reason," Elijah said. "That's just the bare minimum of not being completely evil." "You're right," Vincent acknowledged. "So here's the real reason. If you burn me, you burn yourself too. The FBI will take you from here, put you in foster care or a group home, and you'll lose everything we've built. The education, the security, the future. You'll be just another kid in the system, and we both know how that story ends. So it's a threat," Elijah said bitterly. "Protect you or lose everything. It's reality," Vincent said. "But it's also more than that. It's a choice about what kind of person you want to be. You can be the kid who takes revenge, who sees an opportunity to destroy me and takes it, and I wouldn't blame you for that choice. Or you can be someone who understands that the world is complicated, that people are complicated, and that sometimes the right choice isn't the satisfying one." 4 minutes, Marcus called out, now throwing documents into a metal bin and dousing them with accelerant. Elijah thought about his father, Marcus Hayes, accountant, good man, killed by mistake in a world he never chose to enter. He thought about what his father would want for him. Not revenge, probably. His father had been a practical man, someone who believed in moving forward rather than looking back. "If I do this," Elijah said slowly, "if I lie for you, protect you, what happens after? What happens when the FBI leaves and things go back to normal?" "There is no normal after this," Vincent said honestly. "Even if we survive this raid, even if they can't build a case, everything changes. My organization is compromised. My reputation is damaged. My enemies will see weakness and come for me. The next few months, maybe years, are going to be war. And where do I fit in that war?" Vincent was quiet for a moment. then said something Elijah never expected to hear. Anywhere you want. You can stay here, under my protection, and ride out the storm. Or I can arrange for you to disappear. New identity, clean background, placement with a family far from here where none of this touches you. Your choice, Elijah. Really your choice this time. Not a transaction or a threat. 2 minutes, Marcus said urgently. Vincent, we need to move. Why? Elijah asked, the question that had been building in him for 4 months finally breaking free. Why are you doing this? Why did you really take me in? I know all the strategic reasons, all the logical explanations, but what's the real reason? Vincent looked at him for a long moment, and Elijah saw something crack in that carefully controlled facade, a glimpse of the guilt and pain Vincent kept buried beneath layers of necessity and violence. Because when I found you in my wine cellar, you looked at me and asked if your father's life meant anything to me, Vincent said quietly, and the answer was no. It didn't. He was nothing to me, just a name on a report about a botched operation. But you made him real. You forced me to see what I'd taken from the world. Not just a man, but a father, a husband, a human being with value and purpose. And I realized that I've spent 30 years treating people like chess pieces, like collateral damage, like acceptable losses in my pursuit of power. He moved closer, and Elijah could see the exhaustion in his eyes. Decades of carrying weight that no person should carry alone. I can't undo what I've done, Vincent continued. I can't bring your father back or erase the pain I've caused. But maybe, I can do something that matters. Maybe I can take the son of a man I killed and give him a chance at a life his father would have been proud of. Maybe that doesn't make up for anything, but it's something. It's more than nothing. Outside, Elijah heard the distant sound of sirens, multiple vehicles getting closer fast. 1 minute, Marcus called out. Boss, whatever you're going to do, decide now. Elijah felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him like a physical force. Everything he'd believed about right and wrong, about justice and revenge, about the man who'd destroyed his life and then tried to rebuild it, it all came down to this moment. He thought about his father working late in that office, never knowing that his last moments would come from a case of mistaken identity. He thought about Vincent, sitting in the dark kitchen at dawn, unable to sleep because of the weight of his choices. He thought about Tommy Ricci, alive in Portugal because Elijah had spoken up. He thought about Sophie Martinez at school asking him who he wanted to be. He thought about the future stretching ahead, either shackled to the past or free to become something new. Okay, Elijah said, his voice steadier than he felt. I'll do it. I'll protect your story, but not because of threats or strategy or any of that. Then why? Vincent asked. Because my father was a good man who believed in second chances, Elijah said. And because I don't want to become someone who uses pain as an excuse to cause more pain. You were right about revenge. It doesn't heal anything. It just creates more orphans, more sons looking for vengeance. That cycle has to stop somewhere. Maybe it stops with me. Vincent nodded slowly, something like respect crossing his features. Your father raised a good son. Time's up, Marcus announced as the sirens reached the gates. They're here. Vincent moved to the window, watching as a convoy of FBI vehicles and SWAT trucks surrounded the mansion. Helicopters circled overhead, their spotlights cutting through the February darkness. This was it. The moment when everything Vincent had built would either survive or come crashing down. Whatever happens in the next few hours, Vincent said to Elijah without turning from the window. Remember that you chose this. You chose to be someone better than circumstances dictated. That matters more than you know. The sound of battering rams hitting the front gates echoed through the mansion like thunder. Marcus had finished destroying the sensitive documents, the incinerator's flames visible through the study window. The household staff was secure in the reinforced basement. All the pieces were in place for whatever came next. Mr. Belmont, a voice boomed through a megaphone from outside. This is the FBI. We have a warrant for your arrest and authorization to search these premises. Open the gates and surrender peacefully. Vincent turned from the window, his face calm despite the chaos surrounding them. He removed his bulletproof vest, set down his weapon, and straightened his tie with the same care he'd used preparing for a business meeting. How do I look? He asked with a slight dark smile. Like a man about to be arrested, Marcus said. Good. Let's not disappoint them. Vincent moved toward the door, then paused and looked back at Elijah. Thank you. For what it's worth. Thank you. Then he was gone, walking down the hallway toward the front entrance to surrender himself to federal custody. Marcus stayed with Elijah, one hand on his shoulder in a gesture that was equal parts restraint and comfort. "You made the right choice," Marcus said quietly. "Did I?" Elijah watched through the window as Vincent emerged from the mansion with his hands raised, immediately swarmed by FBI agents who forced him to his knees and handcuffed him. "Because it doesn't feel right. It feels like I just saved the man who killed my father. You saved a man who's trying to become something more than his worst actions," Marcus corrected. "There's a difference." The FBI flooded into the mansion, dozens of agents with weapons drawn, forensic teams with equipment, federal prosecutors with briefcases full of indictments. They found Elijah in the study within minutes, and everything became a blur of questions, cameras, official statements. "Are you Elijah Hayes?" "Yes, sir." "How long have you been living here?" "About 4 months, sir." "What is your relationship to Vincent Belmont?" "He's my guardian. My father was his friend. My parents died in a car accident, and Mr. Belmont took me in." "Has Mr. Belmont ever involved you in any illegal activities?" "No, sir. He's been helping me get my education. That's all." "Has he ever discussed his business operations with you?" "No, sir. I'm just a kid living here. I don't know anything about his business." The lies came easier than Elijah expected, perhaps because they were wrapped in enough truth to feel believable. He was just a kid. He had lost his father. Vincent had taken him in. The specifics, the real story of revenge and guilt and complicated redemption, stayed buried where they needed to be. Hours later, after the FBI had ransacked the mansion and left with boxes of evidence, after Vincent had been taken away in handcuffs, after the media circus had finally dispersed, Elijah sat alone in the study with Marcus. "What happens now?" Elijah asked. "Now we wait," Marcus said. "They'll process Vincent, set bail if they can't deny it, and start building their case. Could take months, maybe years. Meanwhile, you stay here under my protection." Vincent made arrangements. "Legal guardianship transfers to me if anything happens to him. You're covered." "And Vincent? Will he go to prison?" "Maybe," Marcus admitted. "Depends on what evidence they actually have versus what they think they have. Vincent's survived investigations before, but this one feels different. Someone close to him talked. Someone who knew enough to give the FBI exactly what they needed. Who would betray him like that?" Marcus's expression darkened. "That's the question that's going to haunt all of us until we find the answer." 3 months later, the trial of Vincent Belmont became the biggest criminal case in New York in a decade. Federal prosecutors brought charges of racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder, and 24 other counts that could put Vincent away for life. Elijah attended every day of the trial, sitting in the back of the courtroom with Marcus, watching as the government laid out decades of criminal activity. They had financial records, testimony from former associates who'd taken deals, surveillance footage that showed Vincent's organization operating across the city. But they didn't have the smoking gun, the direct evidence that would connect Vincent personally to the worst charges. Someone had cleaned the files before the FBI arrived. Someone had protected Vincent even while betraying him. On the stand, Vincent was composed and unrepentant. He denied nothing but admitted to little, walking the legal tightrope with the skill of someone who'd been preparing for this moment his entire life. And when the prosecution called Elijah Hayes to testify, to tell the court about the man who'd taken him in, to provide character testimony that might humanize or condemn the defendant, Elijah walked to the witness stand, knowing that his words would help determine Vincent Belmont's fate. "Mr. Hayes," the prosecutor began, "please tell the court about your relationship with the defendant." Elijah looked at Vincent, sitting at the defense table in an expensive suit, looking every inch the legitimate businessman his lawyers claimed he was. Their eyes met, and Elijah saw the question there: who do you choose to be? "Vincent Belmont saved my life," Elijah said clearly, his voice carrying through the silent courtroom. "When I had nowhere to go and no one to turn to, he gave me a home. He gave me a chance at a future. He treated me with more kindness and respect than I had any right to expect." "And did Mr. Belmont ever discuss his criminal activities with you?" "No, sir. To me, he was just a guardian trying to do right by a kid who'd lost everything. It wasn't the whole truth, but it was truth enough." The verdict came 3 weeks later. Guilty on financial charges, not guilty on the violent crimes. Vincent Belmont was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison, enough to break his organization's power, but not enough to end his life behind bars. On the day of sentencing, as marshals prepared to take Vincent away, he was allowed a brief moment with Elijah. "You kept your word," Vincent said quietly. "Thank you. I didn't do it for you," Elijah replied. I did it for my father. He would have wanted me to be better than the circumstances. He raised a good son. Vincent repeated what he'd said that night the FBI came. What will you do now? Finish school. Go to college. Become something that would make my dad proud. Elijah paused. And maybe visit you sometimes if that's allowed. Vincent looked surprised. Why would you do that? Because you're part of my story now, Elijah said, for better or worse. And because I think maybe you're still trying to figure out how to be something more than your worst actions. Someone should witness that, even if that someone is the son of the man you killed. As Vincent was led away in handcuffs, Elijah stood in the courthouse hallway with Marcus, watching the man who destroyed and saved his life disappear into the machinery of justice. What now? Marcus asked. Elijah thought about his father, about Vincent, about the complicated journey that had brought him from a wine cellar to a courtroom, from revenge to something that might have been forgiveness. Now I live, Elijah said. I take everything I've learned, the good and the bad, and I build something worth building. That's what my dad would have wanted. That's what Vincent gave me the chance to do. He walked out of the courthouse into the bright spring sunlight, leaving behind the darkness of the past 4 months, but carrying its lessons forward. The son of Marcus Hayes, the ward of Vincent Belmont, and most importantly, himself. Elijah Hayes, survivor, student, and someone who'd learned that the hardest choices are often the ones that define who we truly are.